Hey everybody, welcome back to Sam and Ham. This is Ham, and this is going to be another D&D 5th Edition Homebrew review. Today we're going to be going over the Paladin Oath of the Sun, another one of my creations. Without further ado, let's get started. The first part to any Paladin Oath is, of course, the tenets you must keep. And yes, these are all flavor, but it's something you should probably pay attention to more than most flavor from most classes, so... There are three tenets for the Oath of the Sun. The first is the sun rises, the second is the sun blazes, the third is the sun sets. I tried to be a little poetic writing these, but I'm clearly not the best at that. For the sun rises, every day people are in need of your help, and you must get up every day to help them. For the sun blazes, the sun is the source of life, but also dangerous, just like the paladin that takes this oath. And the sun sets, and just as the sun must set and let everybody rest, you too must rest at some point. Again, those are mostly just flavor, so pay about as much attention to them as you want. Moving on to the actual mechanics of the class, the first thing you got, of course, is the Oath spells. So these are the ones that you get at these levels. They're always prepared, you always have them ready, and you can always cast them with the spell slots you have available. At 3rd level, you get Burning Hands and Hellish Rebuke. 5th level, Dark Vision and Scorching Ray. 9th level, Blinding Smite and Daylight. 13th level, Elemental Bane and Fire Shield. And at 17th level, Immolation and Wall of Light. If you can't tell, they're basically just all fire damage and being able to see generally sun-related spells. I think particularly some of the more fun ones are going to be Burning Hands, Hellish Rebuke, and Scorching Ray. Because those three are definitely not normal paladin spells, so it's definitely make you feel a little bit different than your average paladin of sorts. Those are my favorite spells to put on these always prepared lists, like the Oath spells or the Cleric Domain spells. It really makes the subclass stand out from any other subclass, and definitely makes it feel a little bit more unique. Especially, again, with Burning Hands and Scorching Ray, they're actually going to come in super handy with your capstone, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Also, at level 3, you get Channel Divinity, and you get both of these options, and again, Channel Divinity is standard class feature, comes back on a short rest. So the two options you get are the Sun's Gaze and Nova of the Gods. The Sun's Gaze is more your utility out of combat kind of thing. As a bonus action, you get magical. You can see through magical darkness out to a range of 120 feet and have advantage on insight checks for the next 10 minutes. It's based on the Warlock invocation, Devil's Sight. So I thought that was kind of funny putting Devil's Sight on a paladin, haha. But I think it fits really well with the theme of the sun and, you know, being able to see in even the darkest of darkness. Nova of the Gods. As a bonus action, you channel the Heat of the Sun. For the next minute, whenever you would deal radiant damage, you deal fire damage instead. And, in addition, whenever you roll a die for fire damage, you can reroll any 1 on any of the damage dice, but you must take the new roll even if it's another 1. So very similar to the Great Weapon Master Fighting Style, basically stole the wording from that. The most use I think you're going to get out of this is with your Divine Smite. Instead of now dealing radiant damage, it does fire damage, and you get to reroll those ones. Could come up for any of the smite spells that do radiant damage. That's pretty much it that I can think of. There's not a whole lot else that's going to get converted. I could see some really cool multi-class potential out of this one if you wanted to go for like 3 levels of this and then go into Sorcerer for like a Sorcerer build. Reroll all the ones in your Fireball. Could be pretty good. I don't think it's going to break anything though when Cleric, Tempest Cleric into Lightning Bolt is assuredly stronger, so... The level 7 ability for all paladins is always a aura. Speaking of which, that's kind of actually one of the reasons I liked making the paladin subclass more than actually a lot of them, is because paladin subclasses really follow a theme. They're level 3, they always get oath spells. They always get 2 channel divinity options. Level 7, they always or almost always get an aura. And level 20, they almost always get just some awesome buff that lets them go god mode for a little bit. It's pretty kind of fun to have to design within that very limited design window, and I think it's interesting. But anyway, at level 7 you get Incandescent Aura. Beginning at 7th level, you can use Reaction. If somebody that you can see tries to make an attack roll against you, or an ally within 10 feet of you, You can use your reaction to try to blind them. If they're immune to being blinded, obviously they can't be blinded, but they have to make a con save or have disadvantage on the attack roll. And at 18th level, the range of this increases to 30 feet. So it sounds pretty strong, and it is, but you also gotta remember that there are some really strong auras that Paladins get up 7th level. I mean, Ancients just gets resistance to magic damage, and that's pretty strong, I'd say. Redemption can just absorb damage for their allies. Vengeance is one of the few that doesn't actually get an aura, but they can, whenever they hit somebody with an opportunity attack, you can move up your after speed immediately. I mean, you get some pretty good stuff. I don't think anybody gets really one that's too disappointing. So I felt pretty confident in making a pretty strong one like this, and I like the idea of, the sun being so, I'll say it, grossly incandescent. A couple of people I've shown this to have asked if this was based to be like Solaire from Dark Souls, and that was not the intent, but you could certainly use it for that. Level 15, you get Sentinels of the Sky. Your vision's eternal. While you're outside, enemies can't benefit from half or 3/4 cover from your weapon attacks or spells. And you have advantage on saving throws, resist being blinded. Mostly fluff utility. Most of the 15th level abilities Paladins get aren't too strong. Just looking at Conquest, whenever a creature hits you, they take psychic damage equal to your charisma modifier if you're not incapacitated. That's not great. Ancients, once you get knocked to 0, you get knocked to 1 instead. That's pretty not bad, but that's like an orc gets that automatically. It can't be that great. So again, it's nothing too crazy, but I don't know, I kind of like the idea of just the sun is always watching. And lastly, one with the sun. It's your level 20 ability. It's your capstone, which I also think it's super cool that Paladins get their capstone from their archetype. In general, I just really like when your archetype makes the class feel different than base class. For example, I really don't care for a lot of the wizard subclasses too much because it just feels you're playing a wizard no matter which one you pick. Bladesinger being the obvious exception, but fighter is probably one of the better options where you play very differently depending on which archetype you go with. So, I just like that in general. So again, Capstone comes from a subclass, one with the sun, use an action, and you get the following transformation for a minute. You're immune to fire damage. All of your melee weapon attacks deal an extra d8 of fire damage. Whenever a creature within 5 feet of you hits you with a melee attack, they take 2d6 fire damage. And whenever you cast a Paladin spell that has a casting time of 1 action that deals fire damage, you can cast that spell as a bonus action instead. Can't use this again until you finish a long rest. So like I was saying earlier, it's going to come really in handy with your Burning Hands, your Scorching Ray. Those are going to be the 2 biggest ones that I can see you using with this feature. Again, it's pretty strong, but I don't think it's that much stronger than some of the other ones. For Redemption, Emissary of Redemption is their capstone ability. They have resistance to all damage dealt by other creatures, and if somebody hits you, they take radiant damage equal to half that damage, so that's pretty good. Devotion, they shine light. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in the bright light, they take 10 radiant damage, and you have advantage on saving throws by fiends and undeads. The Ancients is the one I think mine is the closest in comparison to, because they also get the ability to cast Paladin spells as a bonus action rather than an action, but I put the limiter on there for fire damage to, again, really hammer home this fiery theme. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple subclass, nothing quite as in-depth as some of the other things we've seen. So, if anybody has any suggestions, I'm more than happy to hear them. Always looking to improve. Far from perfect, as much as I might tell myself otherwise. So, thank you guys again for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.